It feels like now or never time for the Royals. Are they going to be able to go on a hot streak? I'll tell you in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is a Monday edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. And you can listen to us on wherever you get podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For the first-time listeners wondering how this channel works, we bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes. And then we also have the 60-second YouTube Shorts, which we try to put out after each and every Royals game. And very new to the channel, I guess I should say about a month new, we've got the Royals Postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo. He comes to you live after each and every Royals game for about 15 minutes. However, today and tomorrow, I will be doing the responsibilities for that. However, tonight, I will be out at the game. I'll be covering it. We'll be in the clubhouse afterward. So if you're expecting the postcast to be right after the game, might need to hold off just a little bit. It'll likely take me an hour to an hour and a half after the game before I get that up and running, just because I got to go down and get the audio, got to get the coverage, then make the drive back here and be able to do that postcast. So you can count on that for later on tonight and tomorrow evening. As always, questions and comments can always be left below on this YouTube video, or you can just reach out to me on Twitter directly. So the Royals will begin a series in Kansas City tonight against the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team they have yet to see this year, of course. And last year, if you can recall, they saw this Pirates team in September. So the very tail end of the year, they went over to PNC, and they won that series 2 out of 3. This series, though, and really this week in general, feels very do or die for the Royals. And if you've listened to me long enough, I know I say that phrase a lot, but this next phrase I know I say a lot, you would know that I don't put a ton into June and July or really any other time with the exception of a playoff game in saying do or die or now or never. This week really feels like now or never for the Royals. And I understand you have the entire week off next week, or I should just say the Monday through Friday off, because then they will be taking on Miami at the very tail end of next weekend. But this is a Royals team that has not been able to truly get going. Other than that 17-4 stretch they had earlier in the season, it has not been consistent. And they have so desperately been waiting for that jumping off point where they can just soar above everybody else. And they had some tough competition. They certainly had it in June when you got the Yankees, you got the Dodgers. You faced two of the better teams there. But you also got tripped up by a bad athletics team. So you can't really fall back on, they just went through a rough part of their schedule. Now they've got that ability. There's no guarantee that this series against Pittsburgh or the series against the Mets are going to go in a positive way for the Royals. There are so many times this year where I felt that it could have been the launching pad for the Royals. It could have been the moment because it was such an emotional win, or you felt you had the right pieces in place, and now it was going to be the time for them to take off. And they just haven't done it. And that's baseball, that's sports to a T, that you never can really predict it. But the reason I say this is now or never for the Royals is that we are not only approaching the All-Star break, but we are approaching the trade deadline. And the report came out from Bob Nightingale about 2 to 3 days ago. It was over the weekend at some point that reportedly the Royals will be willing to trade Seth Lugo if they fall out of wild card contention. Maybe you're already there and you believe they're out of it. They're 5.5 back as of tonight, and they're chasing more than just a few teams. They are chasing Boston. They are chasing Texas. They are chasing the Angels. They are chasing Minnesota at this point in time. And, of course, Seattle is the one they need to catch up to. They are the team that they trail by 5.5 games for the final wild card spot. And if you find a way to sweep Pittsburgh and win this series against the Mets, and first things first, you got to win tonight. But looking a bit ahead, if they go 5-1, to close this week and to close out the first half. Now you are a game under 500. It might be 2 games. One of the 2 games under 500, and you have that entire week off to get right. And I know the Mariners are going to be in the Bronx taking on the Yankees. There's a couple other teams like Detroit has maybe Tampa Bay, so that's another team that you were trying to catch up to. Toronto has a tough opponent, I believe, as well. So this can be that week where you start to gain some ground right before everybody has that week off. And if that does happen, now you kind of jump back into that conversation of, well, can they add a few pieces here and there to really make a push in the second half? And I've seen both sides to it. I've seen the side of, I want the Royals to get to a point of buying again so that we can have a fun second half and we can talk about getting back to October and not about let's worry about next year and all these games are kind of meaningless at this point. I've also seen the side of, let's sell. We're not getting Seth Lugo back anyway. We're not getting Lorenzen back. We should trade Carlos Estevez. And I see that side of trying to get some offensive help by trading away some of your top pitching pieces. And there are some guys that can log those innings for those you're trading away. It wouldn't be as effective, and you certainly wouldn't be as good if you traded away all your top pieces. But there are a lot of people out there that look to the, well, we're 43 and 48. And we're 5.5 games back of a wild card spot. And the way they've played all season long, I don't see a hot stretch that's incoming or is imminent in any way, shape, or form. But this can change over this week. It's a Pirates team that's not good on the road. And I'm not trying to jinx anything. I'm just simply putting out the numbers. And in fact, I'll just bring up the tweet that I put out there earlier this morning. Here are the remaining series the Royals have in July. And I know July just began. We are a weekend. Looking ahead to the Pirates' record going into tonight, they are 38 and 53 on the season. But away from PNC Park, they're 12 and 32. They are 20 games under 500. They have a bottom 3 OPS as a team. They are worse offensively than the Royals. They will not face Paul Skeens in this series. They are going to be getting Andrew Heaney, the left-hander. They're going to be getting Mitch Keller, and then they're going to be getting Bailey Falter in all 3 games of this series. But this is one of those opportunities you don't get a lot of on the season. You get a team that you are just better than and is worse offensively than you, and this is more so specific to the Royals. There are teams out there that get a lot of teams that are worse than them offensively. I mean, even Arizona was top 10 in OPS. So they face a lot of teams that are not as good as them or not as powerful as them offensively. But the Pirates, they don't see many teams that are worse than them offensively. And when the Royals took on the Rangers, a team that had the number 1 team ERA, but then had a bottom 5 OPS, the Royals won all 3 games of that series. When they took on San Francisco, a team that's not very good offensively, they took 2 out of 3 in that series. And this is the difference between the Pirates and the Athletics, another bad team they faced at Kauffman Stadium. The Athletics had a top 10 OPS, but they had a bottom 5 rotation. In fact, I believe they had the worst rotation in baseball at the time. But the Royals were facing Luis Severino, who was much better on the road than at home. It's a good offense they were facing. And that, I wouldn't say it was a bad matchup, but it's not as favorable as a matchup as this Pirates one is. Now, the Pirates, they swept the Mets not too long ago and outscored them like 30-5 or 30-6. It was a ridiculous total by the end of that series. So there's always a chance that that Pirates team could show out in this series. But the odds would tell you, coming off of what they showed and not having Paul Skeens, this should be a series the Royals try and go and sweep and get you back to 2 games under 500 and have some serious momentum rolling into the weekend, where you have the Mets, a team who is 52 and 39, but they're 19 and 25 on the road this year. So 6 games under 500 away from Citi Field. Then you've got the All-Star break, and then you open up the second half in Miami against the Marlins, who are 40 and 48, but oddly enough, 20 and 27 at home this year. So you have a team that is 7 games below 500 that you will be on the road facing. Not a very big crowd. They usually don't draw that much, but the Marlins are playing much better baseball. I wouldn't read too much into what their home and away records are. Then you have a very tough 3-game series in Chicago at Wrigley Field against one of the best teams in baseball and one of the best run differentials in all in baseball, and the Chicago Cubs, who are 54 and 36 and 14 games above 500 at home. Then to close July, you'll host the Guardians, who have lost 10 in a row. I'm sure they'll have snapped their losing streak by then. They are 40-48, but they are 5 games under 500 on the road, where they are 20-23 in Cleveland. And that last series in July, it'll be the Atlanta Braves, who are 39-50, really free falling. And I saw that Brian Snitker actually has the best odds to be fired this year, the one manager to be fired first. We'll see. He's got a long history there and tons of success, but the Braves, not so much success this year. 39-50 and 15-28 away from Atlanta. So a really, really poor road team, and that's who the Royals will wrap it up with in the month of July. The Royals, though, are 20-24 at Kauffman Stadium. 4 of 6 series at home in the month of July. They'll face a lot of teams that are in 4th place or worse, and it kind of feels like now or never time for them. The deadline is on the 31st. If there was any time to make up some serious ground, these stretch of games, these series, have to be the one where you get something done. It all begins tonight with the Pirates and the Royals at Kauffman Stadium, and it will be Noah Cameron getting the ball going up against Andrew Heaney. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, only 2 Royals are headed to Atlanta for the All-Star game. That's Bobby Witt Jr. and Chris Bubich. Do we feel like anybody got snubbed? We'll tell you in this next segment on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Catch us on wherever you listen to podcasts. Before we go any further, I want to tell you about the title sponsor in Monarch Money. And with Monarch Money, you can always make sure that you've got your savings in place and you know what things are going to. Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for half off on your first year. So get started today over at Monarch Money. We got the word on Sunday that the Royals would be sending 2 players to the All-Star game in Atlanta. Both of them reserves, or I guess we should say Bobby Witt Jr., the main reserve. Chris Bubich will be in the bullpen for the American League All-Stars. Michael Garcia, Carlos Estevez, Salvador Perez, Vinny Pasquantino, Lucas Ursig. None of those guys will be headed to Atlanta. Not so much of a surprise for Salvador Perez. He clearly did not have a good enough first half. Was some shock that Michael Garcia did not get in. I really felt confident that he was going to be one of those guys to get picked by Aaron Boone. But you look at Jazz Chisholm getting in over Garcia. I look at the numbers and also the games played. I want to say Jazz Chisholm only has 59 games this year, where Garcia has 88. Alex Bregman also is getting in, and he hasn't taken it at bat since May 23rd or May 24th. And I don't believe he's going to be ready to go until the second half. So I'm not sold that Alex Bregman's going to be on the roster. There might be a replacement, and who knows? That might be the perfect opportunity for Michael Garcia to take his spot. But that was pretty frustrating to see, that someone like Michael Garcia, who's turned in such an incredible year on a team that has not been great offensively, doesn't get rewarded with his first All-Star appearance. And that's fan voting to a T. I am somebody that strongly believes that baseball needs to do a better job promoting, and they need to have fans, with all kinds of access. They need to have ways where they can be involved. And this was one of the ways that fans could get involved. But I've done the voting every single year, and I know a lot of you do the voting as well. And the stats are always so simple. It's the easiest stats to read, and it's a big reason why I believe that Jacob Wilson got the nod over Bobby Witt Jr., where even Jeff Passan said on ESPN, Bobby Witt Jr. is the better player, but when you see 336 or 340 right there in front of you, you're going to select that over 285 or 290. And I know that Bobby Witt Jr. did not have the typical Bobby Witt Jr. first half, but he nearly has doubled his overall WAR on the season. He's the best defender in baseball right now. And it's keeping Bobby Witt Jr. from starting in the All-Star game. But fans, they do just look at batting average, and that's the easiest thing to look at. And when you see 330 plus, you're going to be able to do that. And the thing with Maikel Garcia is it wasn't really about batting average because Garcia is hitting 303 and Jazz Chisholm's down in the 240 to 250 range. Now, Jazz has a higher OPS plus. He's got a higher WRC plus. To me, though, it's more so about the games. Like Maikel Garcia has been an everyday player from the beginning, hitting over 300. His OPS plus is only 2 or 3 points below Jazz Chisholm's. And I believe he's been a much better defender. And Alex Bregman, as dominant and as ridiculous as he was before the injury, he's not healthy. And maybe people look at that and saw the slash line and saw the numbers and said, oh, Alex Bregman's got to be in it, but he's not healthy. He hasn't played anywhere near the amount of games as Maikel Garcia. But that also goes back to this fan vote. Not a lot of people are familiar with Maikel Garcia, and your team kind of burns you in that way. If Maikel Garcia was doing this on the Tigers, he gets into the All-Star game. When you are winning a lot of games and you are being talked about, people know who you are. I'm not sure that the national media has too much of an idea of how good Maikel Garcia has been. There's still an opportunity for him to get in if Alex Bregman is just not healthy and not able to compete at all. That might be one of those late switches that we see. But it was frustrating for sure to see that 2 third basemen got in ahead of Maikel Garcia. And I'm not sold that they were the 2 deserving to get in. Now, they've had fine seasons, but Jazz Chisholm, less than 60 games. Bregman's not healthy. And you have Maikel Garcia right here putting together an incredible first half and wasn't rewarded for it. As for the other guys, Seth Lugo felt like he was snubbed. I'm glad he at least got in last year. Not that the injury did much in determining that. It's just so loaded on the American League side for pitchers this year. I mean, what you are seeing from numerous guys is just ridiculous. Hunter Brown and what he's doing. And then you've got Tarek Skubal doing what he's doing. And then you got to factor in getting guys in that have to represent a team. Shane Smith and the White Sox. Like, you have to get a representative in for Chicago, and that's going to weed out some people. Carlos Estevez, another name there that I really would have loved to see. Felt like he might have gotten snubbed because of the number of saves that he has. And he's been very effective this year. Not always pretty, but you have a couple closers on the American League side that have been so unbelievably dominant and are going to be the easier ones to pop there. So in my opinion, even though I said differently on Sunday Sound Off, I kind of wanted to give a different answer than Maikel Garcia being the number one and popular choice. But it is Maikel Garcia. He is the one, in my opinion, that got snubbed from this group. I would have loved to have seen Bobby, Bubic, and Garcia all there, 3 young guys on your team that have been big reasons for some partial success here in the first half. But it's the way the All-Star game goes. I feel that Byron Buxton, I'm glad he's going in the home run derby, but that's somebody that got robbed of being a starter. Fans voted in Javi Baez to be the starting center fielder for the American League All-Stars. You look on the National League side, Juan Soto's not even an All-Star, not even a reserve either. And you're talking about one of the better players in all of baseball. But then I go and look at the National League starting lineup, and it's unbelievably loaded. Like, the National League, talent-wise, is just better than the American League this year. There are star performers on the American League side, but man, I urge you to go look top to bottom at the National League, and that 1 through 9 might be one of the better ones I've ever seen. On the American League side, you got some phenomenal stories. Javi Baez being one of them. Gleyber Torres is in, 2 Tigers right there. You also have the super underrated Jose Ramirez over at third base. Jacob Wilson is quite a story, even though it might anger some Royals fans that he's starting over Bobby Witt Jr. Cal Raleigh, one of the better stories, of course. Like, the American League has all of these great stories that we're seeing, where the National League, man, I mean, you talk about weeding out some really talented guys. Like, I feel for some of those players that got left off the roster, but that starting 9 for the National League, that's just utterly dominant. And then you also factor in, you got Paul Skeens throwing the way that he is. You've got Zach Wheeler throwing the way that he is. You've got a couple of closers at the back end for the National League, Robert Suarez being one that just has dominated. I know there's been a couple of rough outings for Suarez, but you get what I mean. I mean, there's power coming out of the bullpen, power in the rotation, power in the lineup. The American League, they kind of have that cool story element And for Royals fans, Chris Bubich is one of those cool stories that he gets to make it alongside guys like Hunter Brown, guys like Tarek Skubal. Yusei Kikuchi's the representative for the Angels, so that weeds out a couple more guys. Shane Smith, a Rule 5 guy. Give a shout out to Dan Ugla for making the All-Star game there. But you got the cool stories on the American League side. And then you've got a bunch of Hall of Famers. There's Hall of Famers on the American League side, but I would say that on the National League starting side, I don't know if there's any non-Hall of Famers, unless I'm blanking somewhere, because I looked at it this morning and I was just ridiculously impressed with what they're running out there. And that doesn't even include Juan Soto, who's been one of the hottest hitters over the last month or so. So I'm still excited to see what the All-Star game and the Derby has in store. I feel that some guys in the American League side that are reserves definitely got snubbed from being starters, and there were some guys that were just outright snubs. But you let us know in the comments below if you feel that anybody that deserved to be in got left off the list. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's preview the series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. Royals and Pirates tonight at Kauffman Stadium. I'm going to be out there. I'll be covering it. I'll be getting audio after the game. And I'll also be having the Royals postcast after tonight's game. So even though Chance is not doing it tonight and tomorrow, I might be doing it on Wednesday as well. Just bear with me. It won't be as quick as Chance usually gets it up there because I'll be out there at Kauffman. I'll then have to go to the clubhouse afterward. And then I got to drive home, set everything up, and then we'll go live. But I'll be sure to keep everybody posted on Twitter. So that's the easiest way to know when we will be going live tonight after the game. But it will be Noah Cameron getting the ball for Kansas City, going up against Andrew Heaney, who is 4-7 with a 4.16 ERA. As for Heaney, not much of a strikeout pitcher this year. I always wanted him to end up as a Royal after what I saw him do in Texas, the World Series year for them. Felt he would have been a really nice pickup. But last year, he was somebody that just wasn't as effective. He did start a few more games for Texas in 2024, but for the most part, it didn't do anything crazy in terms of regression or really spiraling downward. And it landed him in Pittsburgh in 2025, and he's done pretty much what he's done over the last 2 years. But in 17 starts, 93 innings pitched, he struck out 71, whip right around league average there. He's a good lefty. Doesn't throw incredibly hard. Used to be able to run it up a little bit, if I can recall correctly, but now pretty much sticks to pitching to contact. And over his last handful of starts, he has struggled, and that pitching to contact just hasn't worked as well. He did throw 6 2/3 shutout innings against the Cardinals back on June 30th. So in his most previous start, he struck out 7 as well. But against Milwaukee and Detroit, he got absolutely shelled. Gave up 7 earned to Milwaukee in 4 innings of work, and the Tigers roughed him up for 7 earned runs on 8 hits in 4 innings as well. So going back over his last 7 starts, a 6.03 ERA in 37 1/3 innings. In his last 15, he has a 4.56 ERA, but on the year, that 4.16 ERA in 17 starts. As for some of the Royals that have good numbers against him, only one, and he is in the lineup tonight, and Mark Canha. Canha is OPSing north of 1,000 against them in 22 at-bats, hitting .318. Salvador Perez is 1 for 10 off of Heaney, and then Bobby Witt Jr. is 2 for 4 off of him with an OPS of 1,100. So that'll be the matchup tonight. Of course, the Pirates, who do have Tommy Pham leading off, the former Royal. Nobody in that lineup has seen Noah Cameron, and they have actually not fared as well against lefties this year as opposed to right-handed pitchers. Then on Tuesday night, it will be Mitch Keller going for the Pirates, and it'll be Seth Lugo going for the Royals. Is this one of Seth Lugo's final starts for the Royals at Kauffman Stadium? I guess we'll find out come July 31st if they decide to move him or not. Lugo, though, is taking in his 6-5 record, 2.65 ERA. And in his last 7 starts, he is posting a 2.11 ERA. He has been absolutely masterful ever since that one ugly start against Detroit, his first one since coming off the injured list. He was great against Seattle, 6 1/3, a 1-run ball, 7 Ks. He was great against the Dodgers, 5 2/3 shutout ball, 8 Ks, and then he also struck out 7 and 6 1/3 innings of 1-run ball against the Padres. So 3 really good teams, and he only gave up 2 total runs. He's riding the high. If the Royals choose to trade him, he is peaking at the right time. He is throwing some of his best ball of the season. And as for the Pirates throwing Mitch Keller out there, you feel bad for Paul Skeens, who has only 4 wins, and he's got a sub-2 ERA and coming off 5 shutout innings with 10 Ks. I feel bad for Mitch Keller. 3.64 ERA on the season. He's thrown 106 1/3 innings. His whip is right around league average. He's 3-10. He has been a steady hand for them. He shut out the Cardinals in his last outing, 7 innings of no-run ball, 7 Ks. He gave up only 1 to the Mets in 5 1/3 and only 2 to the Rangers over 5 2/3. He has been so incredibly good this year. The Pirates just don't give him or really anybody in that rotation much run support. We've seen it for the Royals. We've been frustrated with how the Royals can't give their starters good run support. It's been far worse in Pittsburgh. I mean, to have a 3.64 ERA and already have 10 losses in the first half, he might be one of those guys that has 15 or 17 losses, but a sub-4 ERA. Might come close to leading the league in losses because his team just doesn't give him any run support. As for the Royals and some of their numbers against Mitch Keller, you've got Michael Garcia with an OPS of 1,000 against him. Jonathan India, by far and away, has the best numbers of the bunch, hitting 444 and 18 at-bats with an OPS just north of 1,300. And then Bobby Witt Jr. OPSing at 2,300 and just 2 at-bats against him. So, of course, going yard off Keller, they've had some success there. But multiple guys in the Royals lineup have seen him. As for the Pirates, only guy with great numbers against Lugo, funny enough, Tommy Pham in 15 at-bats. He's hitting 467. And then to close out the series, it'll be Bailey Falter going up against Chris Bubic. Bubic coming off that quality start against the Diamondbacks in Arizona, where Bailey Falter is coming off a start against the Mariners, where he went 5 2/3 and gave up just 3 earned runs. Over his last 7, he has a 4.09 ERA, but over his last 15, an ERA that is just slightly above 3 at 3.01. For the Royals that have some history against Bailey Falter, I don't believe anybody does. Actually, I was wrong on that. Jonathan India, playing in the National League for a number of years. He's got 17 at-bats against him, hitting 235. And Mark Canha is, looks like 2 for 6 in 6 at-bats against him. And Luke Maile, 1 for 4 against Bailey Falter in his career. So Bubic and Falter will close out the series on Wednesday. Then the Royals will have an off day on Thursday before beginning their final series of the first half against the Mets coming up on Friday. Well, that'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll be done for this episode today, but I'll talk to you again with the Royals postcast tonight. But for our next episode, look for it tomorrow morning before noon. Until then, or I should say until this evening, you take it easy, Kansas City.